Tom, going to try to catch you off guard. Is running a person over with a golf cart a legal use of force to defend your property? Let's watch this video quickly here. You can see a clearly inebriated man. He's clearly drunk enough to me. Swanning around throwing rocks through windows. And people are videotaping him. They're asking if the cops are there. Now watch this. Out of nowhere. Ooh, okay. Now he parks on top of him. What do you see here?
Why do you do this to me, Kevin? What did I do that I get the golf cart? Is this out of Florida?
Yes,
this
of course.
Looks like a Florida.
Yeah,
is it actually out of Florida?
Yeah, it's out of Florida. Florida man with golf cart, defends home. The headline writes itself. But running somebody over, and then you can hear the guys, we got to go back, you can hear the guys saying, park it. They want it parked on him so he can't get up.
Good.
And of course, our bad guy suddenly becomes really apologetic. I'm sorry, man, I'm sorry. Well, yeah, you got a golf cart, and I'll be charitable, maybe a 300-pound guy sitting in the golf cart.
I think that's charitable based on what I saw. Okay.
And I wonder what kind of speed that golf cart had. How long
is it
of a
gas?
runway?
Is it electric?
Yeah, because he was up to speed when he made impact. So, is he in trouble?
Well, I think a lot of it honestly has to do with, number one, check your local listings before you run someone over with a golf cart, okay? Yeah. Because what are going to be the reasonable use of force when it comes to defending property, okay? And we're making an assumption right off the bat that this is defensive property and there wasn't a child on the other side of the window. Yeah. And the guy with the golf cart knew that was his kid's room and his baby was sleeping, right? And then you can try to take this into some sort of other perspective like that. But if we're quote unquote just in defensive property territory, then we have to keep in mind that in most states, the overwhelming majority of states, when you're talking about using any kind of deadly force, we'll unpack what deadly force means. But deadly force is for people defense, not stuff defense. Now, you also have to keep in mind that depending upon what your level of CDTP, criminal damage to property. Okay. Right? That's if we criminally vandalize or damage something, right? Different states will have the threshold of misdemeanor and felony set in different areas. So is it usually $2,500? Is it $5,000 and so forth? Busting out a couple windows, and let's be clear, I'm not sympathetic to the drunk guy busting out people's windows for seemingly no reason at all. Yeah. No sympathy.
And we don't have the entire video. I tell people that all the time, but from what we could see.
Just from the four corners of the video. Yeah. Right? It would appear to my eyes what he's doing is he's committing a misdemeanor. Maybe multiple misdemeanors, but a misdemeanor. An aggressive prosecutor, probably, depending upon the laws of your state, make the argument that our golf cart hero committed a felony of one type or another when he hit the guy, ran him over, pinned him down. What are we looking at? We're looking at possibly recklessly endangering safety, some sort of battery. If there's injuries, that level of battery could be escalated to substantial or aggravated, again, depending upon the nature of the charges in your particular state. Of course, we have potentially disorderly conduct. If it was restraining his airway or his breathing in any way, shape, or form, depending upon how the strangulation laws are worded in your particular state, if you have to cover someone's mouth or their throat, or if you just have to do something to impair their breathing, you could be looking at felony strangulation charges. You could be looking at false imprisonment charges, because by virtue of leaving the golf cart parked on top of him, we now have him being detained. What are the laws about that? In some states, you're allowed to make citizen arrests for felonies and things like that. In other states, you can't. And let me, again, be emphatically clear. I am morally on the side of the people who are stopping this guy from destroying all the property. All right, so I'm not like pro drunk guys destroying people's property here. Right. What I'm doing is I'm trying to let you know that if you run into the wrong prosecutor, rather than looking at these guys who stopped and detained him as being some sort of hero, they're going to look at him as some sort of crazy vigilante who could, now if we put the pieces together, who could wind up with a felony or possibly multiple felony convictions while the bad guy is only looking at a misdemeanor.
I'm coming at this now as the devil's advocate and stepping way outside my role, and I would suggest my possible defenses for the guy in the golf cart. So clearly the guy in the golf cart, probably not super active, super fit, And there's a disparity of force there. The guy with the rock could have harmed him.
And he looked like a built guy, the guy at the rock.
So using the golf cart to keep this attacker at bay, that's the only tool you had. I don't know how long of a runway does he need before it becomes premeditation. Because if he's winding up from way down the block to get that golf cart going 30 miles an hour, then, if he just started 15 yards away and got it up to speed. So we don't know the pickup rate of the golf cart. But the interesting thing, you brought up, and it's great because I love the way you think as an attorney. Every little thing, the piece about strangulation and is this guy choking out because, you parked on top of him? That might be the only way to restrain this guy to keep him from doing further damage. I mean, if we look at it from the other side, not from the prosecutor side, from the defense attorney side, there's got to be some defense attorney stuff you could be talking about and go, well, wait a minute. I guess, because we're morally on this guy's side, but how would we protect him if this got to a courtroom? What would we say? Me, as I've been to the Lethal Force Institute and the Force Science Institute and stuff like that. What would we say to someone who's like, well, yeah, he had to use the golf cart?
Yeah, I mean, my arguments go to, so you put your finger on the pulse of one of them, which is the fact that the guy who's caving in windows and that kind of stuff. Number one, he's demonstrated his willingness and aptitude for violence, right? We don't know if he's armed or anything like that. We don't see any weapons, but I mean, we don't know. Who knows? Maybe he's got something in his boot, in his pocket or something like that. He's not a small guy.
Yeah.
He's a big guy. We've got a big guy.
I'm pausing the video quickly to remind you that we have a secret giveaway going on that ends really soon, and it's free to enter. Just click the link in the description below to reveal what you could win. Now, back to the video.
Who's willing to engage in reckless, dangerous, and violent behavior. We have a right, generally speaking, in most states, to use reasonable, non-deadly force to terminate an unlawful interference with my property or the property of another. Again, check your local listings. Those laws will vary. So, question number one, is hitting someone with a golf cart going to be considered deadly force?
I'm hoping no.
And I still can't believe you're having me do this.
No,
I just want to remind the viewer.
And I'm hoping no, because what I want to get to is, you said it there, is this a reasonable use of force? What I want to get to is, I don't know the outcome of this case, but I am just hoping beyond hope that someone found it reasonable for him to run another person over with a golf cart.
The argument for the fact that it's deadly force is the fact of, look, generally speaking, the definition of deadly force is force that could foreseeably or reasonably, depending on how it's worded in your particular state, result in death or great bodily harm to another person.
Right.
So is hitting someone with a golf cart something that could trigger great bodily harm? Well, it could definitely trigger death. I think it could definitely trigger great bodily harm. Definition of great bodily harm. If you break someone's arm, that's great bodily harm.
Yeah.
So I would be worried that an aggressive prosecutor at a minimum is going to have a decent argument for the fact that foreseeably hitting someone with a golf cart, let alone parking it on top of him, fits that definition. Now, the guy did get out right at the tail end of the video, so it's not like he added his own weight to the golf cart. He got out, which you could argue is some sort of restraint or something like that. But of course, what's the counterposition? What, we're supposed to shoot him? Okay, you can't use deadly force. Is the counterposition we have to continue to let the unlawful interference go, or do we have to engage this guy in hand-to-hand combat?
Until someone gets hurt.
Right, right. Why should I have to risk my neck because this guy, this drunk yahoo's out there doing all this stuff? So I really think this is a perfect case of how is the prosecutor going to see this? Because I can very easily imagine, depending upon the attitudes of law enforcement, which includes the prosecutors, I could very easily imagine them giving this guy a medal and a high five and a pat on the back.
Yeah.
I could very easily imagine this guy being arrested, charged with multiple felonies, and potentially doing jail time. I think you have the full spectrum of outcomes here. And I'm not suggesting that's the way it ought to be, because he's on team good guy. And to my mind, what he did was certainly aggressive. And I don't know the laws of Florida. Okay. So it could be he acted perfectly within the color of the law and he's going to be completely fine. It could be that what he did is a felony 10 or 20 different ways, right? I don't know, right? But I certainly hope that he's going to wind up being okay, even if that was an awfully aggressive play. That's like being cleaned out by the middle linebacker.
Yeah,
right?
and I want to make it absolutely clear that I'm not advocating that old people start using their golf carts as self-defense weapons. I just think that, man, as I looked at in this case, I was watching this video for the first time thinking, I wish somebody would do something. And then the golf cart came out of nowhere and I was like, yay, somebody did something.
You know, you and I are old enough that I feel like one of the things that drives me the craziest about modern society and all these things, you know, that we see happen on the internet and so forth, right? Some crazy guy comes in and starts attacking like a woman or a child in broad daylight. And everybody's initial reaction is, I'm going to pull up my phone and film it.
Yeah.
Right. Rather than like do something, like help. Right. Yeah. You know, that's the whole, you know, the what is her name? Kitty Genovese, you know, that famous Boston murder where everybody just like watched her get murdered in the street back in, what was that, the 70s or 80s or something. It seems to be getting worse. And I understand because of what we just talked about here right now. Yeah. Where they did something. And rather than getting that, you know, hey, you know what? That was reasonable. All things considered of the situation. We look at the disparity of force between those guys. You know, one of them is already engaged in violence and all that kind of stuff. Hey, that's a reasonable call. And I wish that our law enforcement culture and our laws were much more generous as far as giving folks latitude to act and to err on the side of protecting the good guys who chose to act, like a good Samaritan protection law almost. Yeah. Rather, especially when they use non-deadly force, because that you are risking death if you're choosing non-deadly force, hand-to-hand combat, in essence, as a means of stopping it, ending the altercation. And I feel like at least for many people, part of the reason why we went from a culture that they would go in and stop the bad guy, they would stop the evil or whatever the case may be, to one that we're just going to stand by and be witnesses. Part of that is the fear of the overzealous prosecutor. Yeah. The overzealous media and all these other entities that combine to basically prevent the good guys from acting.
Yeah, absolutely. And as always, Tom, when talking to you, it is more complicated than it originally looks on screen because it looked like a basically simple thing, but there's a lot of ways it can go sideways.
I truly wish it wasn't, and but this is the world we live in.
Yeah. Well, thanks again for the insight. Always great to talk to you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Congratulations, you made it all the way to the end of the video, so you know what happens now. You get to choose, guess, decide, some word. Tell us how many bullets are in the cup. We will choose one person who gets it right at random. Dylan gets to decide, it's not me. And we'll post your name on the screen. That's going to make you internet famous. Before you go, you just missed one of our best videos that got over 500,000 views. Click right here to watch it now.